So just over a year ago, I did a video predicting Doctor Who in 2025. And let's just say it didn't age the best. Following the news that Disney remain on board, Season 3 will begin filming in May. So in today's video, I thought I'd take a bit more of a laid-back approach and talk about what I'd like to see in 2026. I forgot what year we were in then for a second. This can range from obviously the main show and what's going on with that, to things like character options, figure releases, maybe some big Finish stuff in there, and potentially, you know, some missing episodes, that kind of thing. Basically, what I would like to see from Doctor Who in the year 2026. We're also going to be taking a look at some of the predictions that I made last time, because they were very, very, very wrong, as I say in the start. But before we get into it, do me a favour, subscribe if you're new, that would be greatly appreciated. Any support is always valued, and you're all very welcome on this channel. But let's dive right into it. So first of all, let's take a look at some of my predictions that were wrong for 2025. Starting off, I assumed that Doctor Who would air in, I think, March, when in reality it aired in April. The big one that I teased at the beginning is that I was assuming Disney would stay on in a reduced capacity, mainly going on to be a streamer rather than being like a big partner. Kind of similar to what we've had in the past with like HBO deals and Netflix, rather than being kind of co-producing kind of partners. That did not happen, of course. Disney left. They left us. And yeah, no, in this video, I did not predict that Gatwa was leaving, nor that Billie Piper would be kind of coming into the role, kind of, maybe, not really. I still don't know, who knows. So none of that was predicted. I did predict that Season 2 would be received slightly better than the first, which it was being up until the finale, when I think, once again, like with Season 1, people really soured on it. I did predict that there would be a Rose and Ninth Doctor audio series to mark the 20th anniversary of New Doctor Who, although that was fairly likely. I did predict accurately a couple of character options set, mainly that we would have a classic set early on in the year, which I believe we did in the form of the Ainley Master set, and then also that we would get a 60th wave, where we would get, obviously, some of the characters from that story. I did say we would get the Toymaker, which we didn't get, but we did get the Wrath Warriors that were previously shown, and Beep the Meep. So I will take that for what it is. But yeah, suffice to say, it was not a great year for my predictions, and you can go and check out that video if you want. It aged like milk. So in this video, like I say, I'm basically going to take it more from the approach of, what would I like to see? You know, in my ideal world, what would I like to see? I think, first of all, what I would like to see is, I hope we find out this year, preferably before the special comes out, what the plan is for Doctor Who going forward in some capacity. Whether that is a new showrunner, new production company, or whether it is Russell continuing, or whatever it is, I want to know what the plan for this show is beyond this, beyond the Christmas special, because it's great that we have that Christmas special, and I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad that, you know, Doctor Who will continue up until then, but I don't want us to get to the Christmas special and still not know what's coming out after that. Like, basically what I don't want is that to come out, it fades to black, and then we don't hear anything for another few months after that. I want to know, preferably before the special comes out, have we got anyone in line to take over from Russell? Is there a new team? Maybe they could even start filming this year. Maybe that's a bit too optimistic, depending on, you know, deals and stuff. But on the topic of deals, I hope that a new streaming partner sort of aligns themselves with Doctor Who. If nothing else, I want them to do it mainly for the back catalogue internationally. I think that one of the major issues that the Disney deal had was not having access to Doctor Who's vast back catalogue on Disney+. Instead, it was on, obviously, iPlayer, but it was kind of spread out on everything else. Obviously, the HBO Max deal expired last year, and I think for Classic Who, in various reasons, it varied from, like, BritBox to Tubi and other things. So maybe we could get some deals going for some of the back catalogue internationally alongside whatever the future of Doctor Who is. I don't really have a prediction for who will take it up, but I think someone probably will. Another thing I would like to see from 2026 relates to the Blu-ray box set releases. Mainly, can we stop doing the AI upscales? They don't look good, they make the characters look uncanny, and frankly, they looked better before you started using those filters. So I would love to see if they just took the feedback in earnest and just went, you know what, we're not going to add this upscaling to the episodes. Or at the very least, if you are going to add it, make it a changeable option that we can toggle on and off. So those who do want to see it, you know, with AI upscaling can, but for those who don't like the look of it and how smeary and weird it looks, at least in my opinion, we can turn that off. I know some people might say it's not as simple as that, but quite frankly, I think it really does put a dampener on what should otherwise be really, really cool. Because we've been getting some really cool stuff with the collections, especially with regards to, like, the trailers to announce them and stuff. And so I just want the actual, like, quality of the product to reflect that as well, especially because I do like these collection box sets, but they're also not cheap. So I'd like to see less of the AI upscaling in these going forward. On Classic Who as well, I'm hoping that this is the year that we finally have some news with regards to missing episodes. Film is Fabulous have been teasing throughout this year, and obviously they have been slowly making more and more discoveries of old film. So I'm hoping that this year is the year where we finally get told something. Even if it's just one part of one episode, that would still be, you know, absolutely fantastic. Obviously, I could basically say that every year. I'd love to hear some missing episode news this year, but I think especially because of Film is Fabulous and the work they've been doing, it feels more within reach this year than it has for the last couple. So I'm putting that on there, on my little wish list. Obviously, that's not something that's necessarily in the BBC's control, but I would like to see that. Throwing a bit of a rogue prediction out there, in terms of Big Finish, I don't really have many desires in terms of what I would like to see. Obviously, last year I said a 9 in a Row's audio series for the 20th would make sense. Of course, nowadays they have most of the people on board. Obviously, we've recently had the 13th Doctor join up. I don't think you're going to get Matt Smith or Peter Capaldi in the foreseeable future, unfortunately. I might throw a little bit of a rogue prediction out there. Big Finish recently announced that they were going to be doing 15th Doctor era box sets, because they recently had a story announced with the Vlinks and Mel from the 15th Doctor era of the show. And this is probably wishful thinking, but wouldn't it be great if Gatwa did just a little series of Big Finish? Just, you know, make like one mini-series just to test the waters. Maybe that's being too hopeful, it probably is. He is very in demand, but it doesn't take much time, and I think it would help satiate some of the, I think, missed potential with the character. I'd be really interested to see, like with a lot of the past Doctors, how they adapted him for audio, and like what other writers would do with him now that he isn't the incumbent, and you can be more experimental, and maybe we can delve into some of those darker sides of the character that were beginning to be explored in his actual TV run before it got cut off prematurely. We know that the comics have been having a new story where he meets the Daleks with Mel Bush, so you don't even necessarily need his companions there. You could have him travel with an older one. It doesn't really matter, but I think it would be wonderful to get him on it. Don't know whether he will, probably quite unlikely. In terms of character option stuff, I would say that character options had genuinely a pretty great year this year, and that's coming from someone who generally is quite critical of their output. Character options, of course, being the action figure people. Let's have a look at their releases this year. So in terms of their online exclusives, we had the Wrath Warriors, which was a very good set. We had the Master, which was also a very good set, the Anthony Ainley Master, very good. We had the Third Doctor and Sonic, and we had the 14th Doctor and the Meep, and then I can't remember what the B&M ones were now. Character options B&M. I know we had the 15th Doctor TARDIS. We had the Remembrance Special Weapons Dalek re-release and the Revenge Cybermen re-release, which I was very glad to get, actually, because they were two that were missing from my collection, and the Eve of the Daleks set with the Daleks that were a weird off-colour. So, yeah, in terms of, like, B&M, I don't have really much to say on that front, mainly just continue with some of the re-releases that we've been seeing. Perhaps we could see a re-release of, I'd love to see a re-release of Omega, personally, because he is incredibly difficult to get, and obviously he did recently come back to the TV show for our sins. But yeah, I'd like to see just that trend continue with the B&M line, where just re-release stuff that perhaps fans are struggling to get, and give us some variety with that as well. In terms of what I'd like to see from the figure line from the online exclusive, because that's where most of the new stuff comes from, B&M is largely just the, re-release line at this stage. In terms of online exclusives, my one major wish is that we get some more 15th Doctor stuff this year. I think it's kind of sad that in the whole time Ncuti was the Doctor, the only figures we got were variations on him and Ruby. I'd love to see a Belinda figure, but even more so, I would love to see a monster from his era. Doesn't matter who it is, could be any of them, just pick one. I think it's weird that, like, we have the 15th Doctor and Companion, but we don't have a monster to put them with, especially when now at this point the 14th Doctor, the 60th, has 2 of its major monsters represented, and Gatwa's Doctor doesn't have any of its monsters represented. I'm not expecting really anything to tie into the 2026 special, mainly because of Billie Piper's likeness, but who knows. I'd just like to see a bit more of the 15th Doctor in the toy line. Otherwise, though, I don't mind too much. I think they did a pretty good job this year of giving us some good variety. They gave us what I wanted out of the 60th for the most part. Again, I'd always love a toy maker, but Neil Patrick Harris's likeness is probably what's holding that one back. Yeah, I basically just kind of want them to continue what they were doing last year, to be honest, other than obviously having some more 15th Doctor stuff, because I was genuinely quite impressed with the variety they had. A lot of good classic and new Who sets last year, so fair play to them. If they can do some more of that, I would be very, very happy with that. I believe as well this is the last year before the character license expires for Doctor Who, so I don't know whether that'll get renewed this year or what, but will be interesting to see where that goes. Sorry, that was a big tangent on the action figures. I'm very passionate about the action figures, but I don't get to talk about them much because it's not really the remit of this channel most of the time, so let me have that. I'm hoping as well that we find out something about what this CBeebies spin-off is going to be. I believe they said it was going to air early 2027, which would likely mean that we might hear something about that towards the end of the year. And I would also, and maybe this is again wishful thinking, maybe hope that spin-offs are still on the table. Cheaper, smaller scale spin-offs might still be on the table after the success of The War Between. That's another prediction that I actually didn't mention that I got wrong. I was fully expecting, and I said this in the video, The War Between to get about 1 or 2 million viewers overnight, and then maybe at best, 3 million consolidated. It did a lot better than that. Episode 1 has consolidated to about over 6 million viewers in the first 28 days. So I'm hoping that they maybe can say that opens the door for more smaller scale spin-offs in the future. Perhaps a continuation of the War Between series. I know people have suggested the idea of the war between man and machine, and maybe it's the humans dealing with a Cyberman infiltration, which I think would be really, really cool. And there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with that, and you could really give the Cybermen the focus that they need. But to be honest, I liked War Between enough to where I'm more than happy to see more stuff in that vein. And as well, if you do want to get some new writers in, I think spin-offs are a good place for them to cut their teeth. So I think that it would be a good idea to keep that going for a little bit as well. In terms of specific hopes for the 2026 special, I think I could do an entire video on that on its own, so I probably will at some point when we get closer to it. I think my main one at this point in time is just that it wraps up the stuff from RTD to the best that it can. Obviously, there's a lot to wrap up, and we all know that it wasn't the circumstances in which, they were wanting to wrap it up. But if they can pull together a decent conclusion to a lot of the overhanging 15th Doctor arcs, whilst also kind of sending off this period of the show, I think I will be happy at this point. I'm not expecting it to be a mind-blowingly amazing, 10 out of 10 Heaven Sent style episode. I'm expecting something very fan-wanky. I'm expecting something very kind of, celebratory in a sense. And that's fine, so long as it does wrap up stuff quite a bit. My template for this would be something akin to something like Time of the Doctor, where whilst there's a lot going on, it does feel like a satisfying conclusion to the 11th Doctor's era and a lot of his arcs. So I would aim for something in that vein, essentially. Not necessarily, an all-timer episode, but one that does feel satisfying. That might be aiming too high, but, we'll see. They might surprise us. I'm also hoping that maybe, just maybe, we could see another Doctor at the end. I'm saying that that's very unlikely, though, because, like I say, we still have no idea what the future of this show holds. But I hate the idea of, Billy Piper or whoever regenerating, and then it just fades to black. I didn't like that when it was suggested for the 13th Doctor, and I don't think I would necessarily want it now, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. But those are just a couple of my kind of things that I would like to see from Doctor Who in 2026. Whatever your thoughts are, drop them down in the comments. What would you like to see in 2026? I'll be sure to read all your comments, but if you did enjoy the video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.